and welcome to the City of Decatur Municipal Court. We want to expedite your court time today. To do that, we have several things we will share with you before court begins, and the calendar, also known as the docket, is called. Let's begin with a few simple things to remember in any courtroom setting concerning appropriate courtroom decorum and public safety. First, please silence all cell phones. Please keep small children with you at all times. Should you or your child need to go out, please leave the courtroom and give your name to courtroom security. In the event the courtroom fills to capacity, priority seating is given to people with cases on today's calendar, attorneys, and parents of minors. Now, before we begin, I would like to share some basic information on municipal courts. Municipal courts have jurisdiction over ordinance offenses, which are local city laws, such as disorderly conduct and rules of the road offenses. These are misdemeanors with a sentence of up to 6 months in jail and fines of up to $1,000. Municipal courts also have jurisdiction over traffic offenses, such as red lights, stop signs, suspended license, and tag violations. These are misdemeanor crimes under state law and are subject to $1,000 fines or 12 months in jail. There are serious offenses that have a fine of up to $1,000 and a 12-month sentence. State surcharges are also added to any state court offense, and the court cannot reduce or waive these surcharges. You have certain rights as defendants in municipal courts. Give me your attention so that I can explain those rights to you, please. First, you have the right to a trial by jury. However, there are no jury trials in municipal court, only bench trials before the judge. However, you can have your case transferred to the DeKalb County State Court for a jury trial. We will provide you with a date and time today, and that will end your case here in municipal court. You have the right to be presumed innocent. You have the right to confront or question witnesses against you. You have the right to subpoena witnesses or have people come to court to testify for you. You have the right to testify and to present other evidence. You have the right not to testify or produce evidence against yourself, otherwise known as the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney represent you. If you cannot afford one, you may be able to have one appointed to you under certain federal poverty guidelines. You would be required to complete an application and interview with the judge. If you qualify, we would have to reset your case to give you an opportunity to meet with the attorney. A $50 fee may be imposed. Finally, you have the right to appeal this court's decision to the Superior Court of DeKalb County. However, you may want to contact an attorney because the appeals process is very detailed and it is time sensitive. This is a trial calendar today, so please pay close attention as I share with you the pleas that are available to you in municipal court. At the calendar call, you will be asked to enter a plea by your judge. That will indicate how you want to move forward today. You may enter a plea of guilty, which means you are admitting to the charges. You will have your case disposed of today. The judge will give you a sentence and a fine. You may enter a plea of not guilty, and your case will move to trial today. At the end of that bench trial, the judge will issue a verdict. You also have a plea of nolo contendere, that or no contest. That means you're not admitting or denying the charges, but that you will not challenge the charge here in municipal court today. There are a few other final things that I'd like to explain to you before we get started. The first is immigration. If you're not a citizen of the United States, there are certain charges that may impact your immigration status. If this applies to you, please make that note with the judge when he calls the calendar. Also, for any fine that may be imposed, there is a 40% surcharge that will be added to that fine amount. That surcharge is mandated by Georgia legislators. By way of example, if I tell you a fine is $100 in here, the clerks are going to ask you for $140 when you go to the window to pay the fine. We can give you the benefit of probation to pay over time. There is a $44 administrative fee that goes with probation. However, the first 30 days of probation fees are waived. If you are in need of a continuance to hire an attorney or to gather additional information to try your case, please do so at the calendar call. We're about to begin our court session now, and the judge will come in and call the calendar. When the judge calls the calendar, please stand and let the judge know how you'd like to proceed today. You may proceed in the following ways. 1, you may enter a plea. 2, you may ask to pre-try your case with the solicitor. 3, you may request a continuance to hire an attorney or to gather additional information. And 4, you may request an opportunity to apply to see if you qualify for an attorney. Thank you for your attention. We hope that this information has been helpful and will help expedite your time here in Municipal Court. Have a great day. Hello, and welcome to the City of Decatur Municipal Court. We want to expedite your court time today. To do that, we have several things we will share with you before court begins, and the calendar, also known as the docket, is called. Let's begin with a few simple things to remember in any courtroom setting concerning appropriate courtroom decorum and public safety. First, please silence all cell phones. Please keep small children with you at all times. Should you or your child need to go out, please leave the courtroom and give your name to courtroom security. In the event the courtroom fills to capacity, priority seating is given to people with cases on today's calendar, attorneys, and parents of minors. Now, before we begin, I would like to share some basic information on municipal courts. Municipal courts have jurisdiction over ordinance offenses, which are local city laws, such as disorderly conduct and rules of the road offenses. These are misdemeanors with a sentence of up to 6 months in jail and fines of up to $1,000. Municipal courts also have jurisdiction over traffic offenses, such as red lights, stop signs, suspended license, and tag violations. These are misdemeanor crimes under state law and are subject to $1,000 fines or 12 months in jail. There are serious offenses that have a fine of up to $1,000 and a 12-month sentence. State surcharges are also added to any state court offense, and the court cannot reduce or waive these surcharges. You have certain rights as defendants in municipal courts. Give me your attention so that I can explain those rights to you, please. First, you have the right to a trial by jury. However, there are no jury trials in municipal court, only bench trials before the judge. However, you can have your case transferred to the DeKalb County State Court for a jury trial. We will provide you with a date and time today, and that will end your case here in municipal court. You have the right to be presumed innocent. You have the right to confront or question witnesses against you. You have the right to subpoena witnesses or have people come to court to testify for you. You have the right to testify and to present other evidence. You have the right not to testify or produce evidence against yourself, otherwise known as the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney represent you. If you cannot afford one, you may be able to have one appointed to you under certain federal poverty guidelines. You would be required to complete an application and interview with the judge. If you qualify, we would have to reset your case to give you an opportunity to meet with the attorney. A $50 fee may be imposed. Finally, you have the right to appeal this court's decision to the Superior Court of DeKalb County. However, you may want to contact an attorney because the appeals process is very detailed and it is time sensitive. This is a trial calendar today, so please pay close attention as I share with you the pleas that are available to you in municipal court. At the calendar call, you will be asked to enter a plea by your judge. That will indicate how you want to move forward today. You may enter a plea of guilty, which means you are admitting to the charges. You will have your case disposed of today. The judge will give you a sentence and a fine. You may enter a plea of not guilty, and your case will move to trial today. At the end of that bench trial, the judge will issue a verdict. You also have a plea of nolo contendere. That or no contest. That means you're not admitting or denying the charges, but that you will not challenge the charge here in municipal court today. There are a few other final things that I'd like to explain to you before we get started. The first is immigration. If you're not a citizen of the United States, there are certain charges that may impact your immigration status. If this applies to you, please make that note with the judge when he calls the calendar. Also, for any fine that may be imposed, there is a 40% surcharge that will be added to that fine amount. That surcharge is mandated by Georgia legislators. By way of example, if I tell you a fine is $100 in here, the clerks are going to ask you for $140 when you go to the window to pay the fine. We can give you the benefit of probation to pay over time. There is a $44 administrative fee that goes with probation. However, the first 30 days of probation fees are waived. If you are in need of a continuance to hire an attorney or to gather additional information to try your case, please do so at the calendar call. We're about to begin our court session now, and the judge will come in and call the calendar. When the judge calls the calendar, please stand and let the judge know how you'd like to proceed today. You may proceed in the following ways. 1, you may enter a plea. 2, you may ask to pre-try your case with the solicitor. 3, you may request a continuance to hire an attorney or to gather additional information. And 4, you may request an opportunity to apply to see if you qualify for an attorney. Thank you for your attention. We hope that this information has been helpful and will help expedite your time here in municipal court. Have a great day.
All right, good evening, everyone. Mr. Jackson, are we ready to proceed this evening?
Yes, sir, Your Honor, we are.
All right, Mr. Steele, good evening to you, sir. It's good to see you. Let's see. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the City of Decatur Municipal Court. It is Thursday evening, August the 5th, 2021. I'm Judge Bailey, and I'm going to be presiding this evening. Before we get started on the calendar, I do need to review some information with you. A lot of it is going to be redundant based on the videos that you just watched, but I need you to give me your attention for just a few more minutes because it is important that you understand how we proceed tonight and also that you understand certain rights that apply to you this evening. Let me begin by saying that any recording of these proceedings is prohibited by Georgia law unless you have court approval to do so. You can, of course, arrange for a court reporter to record the proceedings if you're in need of an official transcript. Here in the City of Decatur, we record our court proceedings for our own internal purposes of the municipal court. But again, it is not an official record. It can't be used for appellate purposes or anything else. So Please keep that in mind. In keeping with the public access requirements for judicial proceedings, I do want you all to understand that tonight's proceeding is being live cast, if you will, or broadcast on the internet through the court's YouTube channel. Georgia law requires that all proceedings be open to the public, and that's how we sort of make the public, allow the public to sort of join us, if you will. Keep that in mind, please, for your own safety, for your own privacy. Anything that comes within the view of your camera, obviously, during tonight's proceedings could potentially be viewed on the internet, so just keep that in mind. Similarly, to avoid any interruptions, whether it's a dog barking in the background or whatever it may be, I would ask that you please keep yourselves on mute until you are being addressed by the court. Tonight is not a trial calendar. I know Judge Stroud said in the video that it was a trial calendar, but because we're still online, we're doing only arraignments this evening. If you wish to have a trial and you have an absolute right to a trial, we will schedule that for you. It just won't occur this evening. I do need you to understand with regard to the charges that brought you here this evening, most of you are here on a state law traffic offense. If that's the case, the maximum sentence that can be imposed would include a $1,000 fine and up to 12 months in jail. Some of you are here on what we would refer to as a city ordinance violation. In that instance, the maximum fine is still $1,000, but the maximum amount of jail time that can be imposed is only 6 months. The video that you watched reviewed your rights with respect to the charges that brought you here tonight. I do want to just go over those really briefly. As I mentioned, you each have a right to a trial. If you're charged with a state law offense, that includes the right to a jury trial. We don't do jury trials here in this court. If you wanted a jury trial, we would transfer your case to the state court in DeKalb County and you could have a jury trial there. Otherwise, you could also have the option here of doing a bench trial. A bench trial is simply where a judge such as myself would hear the evidence and make a ruling in the case. Again, you also all have the right to the presumption of innocence. You have the right of confrontation, that is to say, right to cross-examine any witnesses who testify against you. You all have the right to present evidence on your own behalf. You have the right to testify on your own behalf, but you also have the right to remain silent. That is part of Georgia's right against self-incrimination. Perhaps most importantly, I want to make sure you understand that you have the right to an attorney this evening and at all stages of the proceeding. Attorneys can be particularly helpful because they can help you make strategic decisions about your case, such as what kind of evidence to present, whether or not to testify, or whether to exercise your right to remain silent. They can advise you about defenses that may be available to you, such as double jeopardy or misidentification, justification, or alibi. They can explain the charges to you and also explain any lesser included offenses to you. They can conduct plea negotiations on your behalf. They can explain and present mitigating circumstances to the court. And then, of course, they can also ensure compliance with the rules of procedure and the rules of evidence, which will apply if you have a trial. So those are all significant advantages to you of having an attorney. You are not required to have an attorney, though. And in fact, under the U.S. Supreme Court decision of Ferretta versus California, you have a right to proceed without an attorney. But I will want to make sure that you understand that you're giving up benefits I just reviewed if you choose to proceed without counsel this evening. In a minute, I am going to call the calendar, and when I do so, I'm going to ask if you know how you wish to proceed this evening. You have 3 plea options. You can enter a plea of not guilty, guilty, or no-lo. Not guilty simply means that you want to have a trial, and I'll ask again if you want to have a bench trial or a jury trial, and then we will coordinate or schedule that as appropriate. If you enter a plea of guilty, you are admitting to the offense. So if you are charged, for example, with running a red light and you enter a plea of guilty, then you are admitting that you ran the red light. Your third plea option is to plead nolo. Nolo contendere is a Latin term. It loosely means no contest. Unlike a guilty plea, it's not an admission. You're just not contesting the charge. So if again, if the charge was running a red light, you're not admitting that you ran the red light. You're just not going to contest that you ran the red light. The significance of that is twofold. Number one, it's not an admission, and so it may be significant for liability purposes. most importantly for most folks anyways, the advantage of a no-low plea is that it will not result in points being assessed against your driver's license. Similarly, there are some offenses in the state of Georgia that require the automatic suspension of your driving privileges if you enter a plea of guilty or if you're found guilty. A no-low plea may avoid the automatic suspension of your driving privileges. So those are considerable advantages to a no-low plea if it's available to you. I do need to let you know, first of all, it's discretionary. I have the discretion as the judge to decide whether I think it's appropriate to accept a no-low plea or not. You're also limited to entering a no-low plea only once every 5 years for each class of offense. So keep that in mind. If you entered a plea of no-low, 4.5 years ago, you're not going to be able to do that again this evening. When I call the calendar, you also have the option of requesting a pretrial conference. On the screen with us this evening is denoted as the solicitor there is Mr. Steele. Mr. Steele would represent the city. If you were to have a trial, he would prosecute the case. And as such, he has a lot of authority this evening to make offers to you to help reach or hopefully reach a resolution to enter into a plea agreement. You will have an opportunity to speak to him. If you are willing to accept the offer that he makes, that's great. We can probably resolve your case tonight. If you don't want to accept the offer that he makes, that's okay too. You still have all the rights that I reviewed earlier, including the right to enter a plea of guilty or no-low or not guilty and to request a trial. You're not obligated to speak with Mr. Steele, but if you have any questions or any concerns, for example, about whether you're eligible for a no-low plea, I would encourage you to do so. Let me just say really briefly, for those of you who are resolving your case this evening, either by a plea of no-low or guilty, if I'm satisfied that you're entering that plea freely and voluntarily, we'll go ahead and proceed with sentencing. I will most likely impose a fine in addition to whatever fine amount I impose. As Judge Stroud said in the video, the court is going to have to collect court costs and then state surcharges on top of that fine. Those surcharges typically run about 40% of the underlying fine. They can be more than that. So just keep that in mind. If I impose a fine of $100, you will actually owe a total of $140 because of the surcharges. If you're able to pay everything in full this evening, you will be given instructions for how to do that, and then your case can be closed out. If you need time to pay, we can talk about either deferring your payment. I'll enter an order that gives you 30 days or 60 days to do it. If you're able to do so, that's great. Then your case will be closed out automatically. If you're not able to do it within that time frame, you will be required to come back to court. Another option, if you need time, is that you can ask for probation. In this court, one of the advantages of probation is that we allow folks to perform community service and be credited at the rate of $15 an hour against any fines that they may owe. So that's another option that is available to you. All right, at this time, I am going to go ahead and call the calendar. When you hear your name, if you will, please take yourself off of mute and identify yourself for me. The first on my calendar this evening is a Sherry Adams. Is there a Sherry Adams present? If you're not being addressed by the court, I am going to ask you to turn mute yourself, please. All right, so Miss Adams is not present. Janetta, is it Briskin?
Hello, Janetta Brixton.
Brixton, good evening, ma'am. You were charged with improper stopping or parking on. Okay, do you know how you wish to plead, or do you want to speak to Mr. Steele?
I'll speak with Mr. Steele first.
Okay, very good. I'm going to put you down then for a pretrial conference, and we'll get to you in just a minute for that, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ken Birch, is there a Mr. Birch present?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Birch. You were charged with the uniform rules of the road violation, it looks like. Do you know how you wish to plead, or do you want to speak to Mr. Steele?
I'd like to plead not guilty, sir.
Okay. All right, bear with us for just a second. I may have you speak, Mr. Steele. Were you about to say something?
Yes, Judge. Mr. Birch, he's pled not guilty, and that's perfectly fine, Judge. We'll set that down for a bench trial. However, his original charge is failure to yield to a pedestrian, and that is the charge that the city will prosecute.
I understand. I appreciate that clarification because it's not marked on my calendar as one that had that offer. So,
Yes, sir.
right. Okay. So, Mr. Burch, just so you understand, apparently you were originally charged with a state law traffic offense. Mr. Steele, what was it again, sir?
Failure to yield to a pedestrian.
Okay, failure to yield to a pedestrian. That is a state law traffic offense. So if you're convicted of that, the maximum fine is going to be up to $1,000 or up to 12 months in jail. All right. You were given an offer, if you will, already, or you should have received a letter giving you the option of entering a plea to that charge on a reduced accusation of uniform rules of the road violation. That offer is still available to you. We don't withdraw offers once they're made. So if you're still interested in doing it, resolving it that way, you can. You have an absolute right to a trial, though. Just understand, as Mr. Steele said, the trial would be on the initial charge, the failure to yield charge. Do you want an opportunity to speak to Mr. Steele in a pretrial conference, or do you understand all that, sir?
I understand that, Your Honor. I'm not guilty of those charges, and
I understand you have a right to a trial. Then we can schedule you for trial. I just want to make sure that you understand that the uniform rules of the road charge that I referenced earlier was an offer that was made. That's not actually what you're charged with, and I apologize. My calendar is incorrect in that regard. So.
All right, so I understand it to be a risk that I'm taking for pleading not guilty.
All right.
Right. Okay.
All right, so we'll put you down then for not guilty. The clerk, Mr. Jackson, is going to get with you to make sure we've got your correct contact information and everything, and then we will schedule you for a trial. Do you want a bench trial here in this court, or do you want your case transferred to DeKalb County State Court for a jury trial?
No, bench trial.
Okay.
Be fine.
All right. As I said, in a few minutes, Mr. Jackson's going to get with you. Once he's confirmed that he has your contact information, sir, you'll be free to log off, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Next on my calendar is Charles Figley. Next on my calendar is it Almasi Kitunda? Nope. Sanjay Kumar.
Yes.
There you are, sir. Good evening. I've got you. Looks like you were charged perhaps with failure to maintain lane. Do you know how you wish to plead, or do you want to speak to Mr. Steele?
I plead guilty on this. I think I was not able to maintain the left lane.
All right. I'll put you down for a guilty plea, sir. If you want to hold on for just a minute, we'll get to that plea, okay?
Okay.
Next on my calendar is Denzel Slater. Mr. Slater present. There you are, sir. Mr. Slater, you're charged also with rules of the road. Mr. Steele, is this a COVID offer letter?
It is, Judge. The original charge was failure to obey traffic control device. An offer was made back in August. Should the defendant desire to avail himself of the offer, it remains open through tonight's proceeding.
Understood. All right, Mr. Slater. So again, just to be clear, you were charged with failure to obey a traffic control device, which is a state law traffic offense. The city has agreed, because of COVID and in an effort to try and sort of resolve some of these cases without having to bring people in for trial, the city solicitor has agreed to reduce this charge to a uniform rules of the road violation, which is not a state law traffic offense. It's just a city ordinance, doesn't get reported to Department of Driver Services, et cetera. If you want to resolve the case this evening on that reduced charge, you may do so by entering a plea of either guilty or nolo. You have a right to a trial, but on the trial, that would be for the original charge of failure to obey a traffic control device. Do you understand all that, sir?
Yes, Sean.
Okay.
Does it go? You said it doesn't go on my record at all?
It doesn't get reported to the Department of Driver Services, so it has no effect on your driver's driving record. That's correct, sir.
What about my criminal record?
No, so you wouldn't have a criminal record.
Oh, and how much is it?
Mr. Steele, do you know what your recommendation on that would be?
The offer that was made,
Oh,
this
that's right.
is set forth in the offer, is $145 fine plus the
Okay.
$3.50 surcharge for a total of $148.50.
148.50. gonna say not guilty at this time.
Okay, and that's fine, Judge, but the city is withdrawing the offer, and the
I-
original charge of failure to obey traffic control device is the offense upon which the state will proceed.
All right. All right. Mr.
Can I-
Slater, go ahead.
Been talk to Mr. Steele offline. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I'll put you down for a pretrial conference, and we'll see what y'all can come to, see if y'all can come to an agreement or something. Next on my case is a Dequan Slaughter. Let's see, Mr. Slaughter present. Natasha Solomon. Let's see, Ms. Solomon, can you unmute yourself for me, please? Mr. Steele, what was the original charge on this?
The charge on the original charge is failure to obey traffic control device.
All right, Ms. Solomon, then, as Mr. Steele indicated, you're charged with failure to obey a traffic control device. You do have an option this evening of entering a plea of either guilty or nolo to an amended accusation, reducing that charge to a uniform rules of the road violation. Again, it's not a state law violation, it's a city ordinance violation. You also have the option of entering not guilty and proceeding to a trial on the original state law charge. Do you know how you want to proceed, or do you want to speak to Mr. Steele first?
I'm going to speak to Mr. Steele, if possible.
Okay. All right. We'll get with you in just a minute and let you do that. Next on my calendar is Chauncey Taylor. There you are, Mr. Taylor.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, sir. I see you there. You were charged with failure to obey a traffic control device. Do you know how you wish to plead this evening, or do you want to speak to Mr. Steele?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
All right. And Mr. Taylor, do you know, are you going to want to exercise your right to a jury trial and have this transferred to the state court of DeKalb County, or do you want a bench trial here in this court?
No, I'd rather have a bench trial. I'm cool with that.
All right. So again, my clerk, Mr. Jackson's going to get with you in just a minute. And once he has confirmed that he's got your contact information, then you'll be excused to leave. Don't leave until you talk to him. Okay, sir?
All right, that's no problem.
Thank you, sir. Brandy Thompson, I see you were gone and now you're back just in time.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry. My call dropped out, but I'm here.
That's all right. Mr. Steele, what was the original charge for Ms. Thompson?
Judge.
Oh, you know what? This is a deferred payment, isn't it?
This is a reset to pay. She entered a plea of guilty to an amended accusation.
I see that.
Back on the 22nd day of April, was given time to pay the fine. It has not been paid. The city would ask that she be placed on probation for 6 months to terminate upon payment of the fine.
All right. Ms. Thompson, bear with me for just a second. Let me finish the calendar and then I'll come back and you and I can talk about how we want to move forward here. But I have that the city's recommendation is 6 months with early termination. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct, Judge.
Okay.
Okay. Again, Ms. Thompson, just bear with me and we'll come back and talk about that in just a second.
Okay.
Last on my calendar is a Hannah, is it Weeg, W-E-E-G? All right. Anybody whose name I did not call? I think that's everybody. All right, we've got some pretrial conferences. Sanjay Kumar, Mr. Steele is going to enter a plea of guilty. Do you have a recommendation on that?
Yes, Judge, the defendant is entering a plea of guilty. The recommendation by the city is a fine amount of $150 plus the applicable state surcharge, bringing the total of $208.25.
All right, and I think that is it. So if you want to go ahead and begin your pretrial conferences, and I'll handle the rest of the stuff while you're doing that, okay?
So, Judge, if I can get, let me find my list here. Janetta Briskin in a breakout room, please.
All right.
Thank you, Judge.
Ms. Brixton, you're going to get a notification that you're being invited to a breakout room. If you'll accept that, you'll move into a private room where you and Mr. Steele can speak. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Mr. Kumar, as I indicated, you were charged with failure to maintain lane. You're asking the court to enter to accept the plea of guilty. Do you understand by entering the plea of guilty, you are admitting to this offense?
Yes, but I have a quick, can I say something? It was a busy day on that day, and it was there was traffic around that time.
All right,
And
hold on just a second before we get down that road. If you want to try to explain mitigating circumstances, that's a discussion that would be appropriate for you to have with the solicitor, Mr. Steele. Okay, because he has the authority. If he agreed that yeah, the circumstances were whatever, he could negotiate some other resolution to you. The only thing I can do is accept the plea on this charge. Okay. Now I can listen to those mitigating circumstances and take them into consideration for purposes of a fine amount. But not on whether or not to make any changes to the charge itself. So do you want to speak to him to try and sort of negotiate some other resolution, or you just want to tell me what happened so I can take that into consideration on the sentencing?
Can I talk to him?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, so we're going to change that. We'll put you down for that. All right. I think that was my only plea. Mr. Jackson, are you taking care of my not guilty? I guess it's just Mr. Birch. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right. I don't see him anymore. You got what you needed from him?
He's in the, I'm getting ready to join him in the breakout room.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. All right, Ms. Thompson. There you are. Ma'am, you were ordered to pay $153.50. I understand you weren't able to do that.
That's correct.
So what the city is recommending then at this time is that you be placed on probation. That'll allow you some more time to pay that. It'll also give you the option of making smaller payments, incremental payments over time, if that's helpful. As I indicated, it also gives you the option of performing community service while you're on probation. Is there a reason, ma'am, why this $153 is going to cause a considerable financial hardship to you and your family, or is it just a matter of needing some time to get it paid?
Yeah, so just a small backstory, and I told him last time, like I lost my job, but then my dad, he got sick, and I'm his primary caregiver, so I can't really go back to work right now. I would have already tried to take the community service option, but I'll have to kind of be in place with my dad to help out as much as possible. So I was gonna ask today if I could at least get maybe the probation to pay the small payments or whatever, and just try to come up with it that way. But my fear is not being able to pay, and I don't, I'm gonna need to be in place for my dad and my kids as well. So
okay. What how many children do you have, Ms. Thompson?
3, they're right back there.
All right. What are their ages?
I have 15, 12, and 7.
All right. Does he live with you and you're taking care of him, or you going to help at where he is?
Well, I moved in with him. He was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. So we moved in to just help out and just be there.
Okay. Are you from this area, or is that why you're here, is to help take care of him?
Yeah, well, we are from here, but I just, moved out of my home to kind of stay in because he would need, help a lot. It's easier than to go back and forth and, because sometimes things can happen in the middle of the night. And I have a CNA, so I have a
Oh,
few
okay.
things that I'm trying to help out with. Yeah.
And are you currently working, or are you just taking a sabbatical from work to take care of your dad?
I am. I'm just taking care of my dad right now.
Okay. All right. Ma'am, I'm going to suspend the fine on that. So if the clerks will please make a note of that, that will be considered satisfied.
Okay.
So you don't need to worry about that payment. I wish you the very best.
I really
You
appreciate it.
and your children, and the same to your father. All right, ma'am.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, sir.
All right, you take care. Be well.
Thank you. All right.
Your Honor, if Ms. Thompson is free to leave the session.
Unless you need anything from her, but no, Ms. Thompson, you may log off. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. While we're waiting on Mr. Steele to come back, the rest of you, Ms. Solomon, Mr. Kumar, Mr. Slater, y'all are welcome to leave your cameras on if you want. You can turn it off while we're waiting. That's up to you. When you are called by the court, just make sure you turn it back on for us. All right, Mr. Steele.
Yes, sir.
All right. Do we have an announcement?
We have an announcement in Ms. Briskin's case, Judge. Ma'am, if you will unmute yourself, please,
Yes,
and raise
sir.
your right hand. You do swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
State your name, please.
Janetta Brixton.
Thank you. You can take your hand down, Ms. Briskin. Judge, the defendant is charged with stopping, standing, or parking prohibited. She desires to enter a plea of nolo contendere to the charge. The city does not oppose the court accepting that plea. The recommendation is that Your Honor impose a fine amount of $150 plus the applicable state surcharge, bringing the total to $205.25, I believe is, yes, $205.25. It is my understanding that Ms. Briskin's prepared to pay that fine tonight and close the case.
Just for clarity, that fine would be $208.25.
What did I say? Yeah.
205.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's $208.25. Thank
Too
you.
late, Mr. Steele.
All right.
Too late.
Too late.
Too late. Yeah, too late.
He's trying to keep me on my toes. All right, Ms. Brixton, is that your understanding of the agreement that you reached?
I do.
While you're going through that with Ms. Briskin, Judge, may Mr. Slater and I get in the breakout room?
Absolutely. Also, Mr. Steele, Mr. Sanjay Kumar did want to speak to you on that failure to maintain lane. He had announced that he wanted to enter a guilty plea,
Okay.
but he wanted just to talk to you a little bit about the circumstances.
Okay. I don't see him on here anymore, but I'll try to get him when I get back.
His camera's turned off, but he's still online.
Okay.
So, all right. All right. So, Ms. Brixton, again, do you understand by entering your plea this evening that you're giving up the rights I reviewed earlier, including your right to a trial, your right to the presumption of innocence, your right to remain silent? You waive or you give up those rights when you enter a plea. Do you understand that, ma'am?
I do.
Okay. Do you also understand that you have a right to a trial on this charge?
I do.
Right. And are you waiving or giving up your right to a trial?
I do.
Are you waiving or giving up your right to be represented by an attorney this evening?
I do.
And are you under the influence of any drugs or alcohol this evening, ma'am?
I'm not.
All right, so I'm satisfied that you are entering this plea freely and voluntarily. I'm going to accept the plea of nolo contendere to the charge of improper stopping. The fine amount of $150 with the applicable surcharges comes to a total of $208.25. Are you in a position to pay that this evening, ma'am?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so the clerk is going to make sure that we have your correct email address, and then he will send you a link that will allow you to make that payment. Once your payment is made, your case will be closed out, okay?
All right, thank you so much.
All right, Mr. Jackson, do we have her email, or do you need to get that through chat?
I have everything that I need from Ms. Bryson.
All right, very good, Ms. Dixon. Then you may log off and you are excused. Thank you for being here, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Mr. Steele.
Yes, sir, Judge. I have pre-tried Mr. Slater's case. Mr. Slater, if you can unmute yourself, please.
Go ahead.
Judge, Mr. Slater was originally charged with fatal of a traffic control device. A COVID letter was sent to him. I don't know whether he got it or not, but I'm still willing to go by the agreement that I made in the COVID letter, presuming that the defendant wants to dispose of this case tonight. I explained all that to the defendant, and Judge, he is asking that the court continue this case. I don't know for what reason. The city does oppose a continuance. Judge, the defendant got this citation on October the 17th of 2019. So the city is ready to proceed one way or the other.
Mr. Slater,
Yes, Your Honor.
I understand you're asking for a continuance. What do you need some more time for? It's been almost, we're going on close to 2 years since this citation was issued. What you need?
Yeah, like I was telling him, I mean, I just started back working and I'm in the process of moving and a lot of
Sir,
like that.
I can't, sir, I'm gonna have to interrupt you. You're gonna have to face the phone or camera or whatever so I can hear you better.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
I said I just started working, so just not a good time for me.
and I asked the court that I can get a continuance. This case was continued 3, maybe 4 times beyond my control when I was ready to proceed. So I asked the court that they take that into consideration and grant me a continuance.
Mr. Jackson, are you aware of the bases for any prior continuances?
The only continuances that he may be speaking of is due to the COVID. But far as him appearing in court and was granted a continuance, he has not. But these are just the court's closure due to COVID-19.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
And just for the, I'm sorry, Your Honor, just for the purposes of clarity, the defendant got the ticket on October the 17th of 2019. His first court date was January the 22nd of 2020. That was pre-shutdown. So because we didn't shut down until sometime in March. And then it looks like it was continued from then to maybe March the 23rd. And I don't know who requested that continuance.
I stand corrected, Your Honor. I'm looking at the case now. He appeared in person on January 29th of 2020 and signed for a new court date. And at that time, he stated that he will be out of state with a job for 1 year.
Right. So I just got back.
Okay. Well, Mr. Slater, I understand you just started working. That would be an issue in terms of any fine amount that would be assessed if you entered a plea of guilty or no to this modified accusation. So if that's the concern, we can address that by giving you time to pay it. But if you don't want to admit, if you don't want to enter a plea of guilty or no to this charge, you have a right to a trial, and I'm certainly going to honor that right, but it would be on the failure to obey a traffic control device. Mr. Steele, I think is objecting to this matter being continued. And I understand your frustration, sir. None of us have particularly liked the delay in all of these matters over the last year, but it's been sort of beyond all of our control. How much? Normally, I grant a continuance for somebody to go and talk to a lawyer or something, and I give them 2 weeks, maybe come back in a month the most. Is that going to address your financial concern?
Well, I mean, my thing is like, okay, I just started a job, and they're going to be doing a background check for me to go permanent, and I'm just not sure if that that citation or that citation that he's offering me going on my record is going to help me at this time.
Go ahead, Mr. Steele, please.
Judge, if he avails himself of the offer that I made, it's not going on his record. If that's his concern, there is no basis for a continuance.
So when they pull the GCI, it's not going to be on my record at all?
I'm sure it's not going to be on your, you were not arrested on this charge. It's not going to show up on the criminal history.
Yep, the only record of this is the citation that's in the city of Decatur court, and it's going to be reduced to a uniform rules of the road violation. So this would not be on a record. It won't get reported to driver services. It won't be on your driver's license, your driving record history, or anything.
How much you say it again? What's the total?
Judge, the fine that the city is recommending as set forth in my offer is $145 fine plus $3.50 surcharge for a total of $148.50.
Okay, can you reduce that any, Mr. Steele?
No, sir, I cannot.
All right, that's fine. Huh? You will not. You can, but you won't.
I guess I could, but I'm not going to, yeah.
Thanks a lot. Okay, Judge, can you give me 30 days?
To decide if you want this offer or not, or to 30 days to pay that amount?
To pay the amount.
All right. yes, but we got to get to that part
We got
first.
it.
Well, I need confirmation from you, Mr. Slater, that you are in fact willing to enter a plea to this reduced charge of uniform rules of the road violation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
raise your right hand, please, sir. Mr. Slater, you do swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
State your name, please.
Denzel Slater.
Thank you. You can take your hand down, Mr. Slater. Your Honor, Mr. Slater is originally charged with failure to obey traffic control device. He is entering a plea of guilty, I presume, to an amended accusation charging him with violation of uniform rules of the road or local ordinance. The recommendation is that the court impose a fine amount of $145 plus the applicable not state surcharge, but local surcharge of $3.50, bringing the total $148.50.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Steele. If you want to go ahead and,
And me and Ms. Solomon, Judge, please.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Slater, do you understand by entering your plea of guilty to this amended accusation, you're giving up your right to a trial that we've talked about?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Do you understand that you're also waiving your right to remain silent, your right to the presumption of innocence, all the rights that I reviewed earlier today with regard to your right to a trial and such, you give those up as well. Do you understand that, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
And do you understand that you have a right to an attorney and by proceeding this evening, you are waiving your right or giving up your right to an attorney? Do you understand that, sir?
Yes.
Are you under the influence of any drugs or alcohol this evening, sir?
No.
Has anybody promised you anything or coerced you in any way to get you to enter your plea this evening?
No.
All right, I find that you're entering your plea freely and voluntarily. I am going to accept this plea of guilty to an amended accusation of a city ordinance violation of the uniform rules of the road. The fine amount is $145 plus the applicable surcharge of $3.50. So the total amount you would owe is $148.50. Is 30 days going to be enough for you to pay that, sir?
Yes. Will a NOLO be better on this situation or no? Please.
NOLO won't make any difference. The primary benefit of the NOLO is that it doesn't have, it would prevent you from having points assessed against your driver's license, but that wouldn't happen here anyways, because the state's not even going to know about it.
Okay, great.
Okay, yeah. So is 30 days you said is going to be enough for you to pay this?
That's fine.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to give you it's called a deferred payment order. If you pay it, you can pay it anytime between now and what's the date on that, Mr. Jackson?
Due to the holiday, Your Honor, we're gonna have to push his case out a little bit further to give him until September 20th.
All right. I don't think he'll object to that.
No.
Mr. Slater, you're going to have until September the 20th. Now, this is important. You need to, you're going to get instructions on how to pay that. If you pay it before September 20th, your case will be closed out, okay?
All
If anything happens between now and then and you can't pay it before that date, that's okay. You're not in trouble by any means, but you'll have to come back to court on the 20th to explain that something came up and you need more time, okay? The reason I emphasize that is because if you don't pay and you don't come back to court on the 20th, I may then have to issue an arrest warrant to have you brought into court. And I don't want to do that on a traffic violation. Do you understand that, sir?
Yes.
Okay. So either pay it by the 20th or come back to court on the 20th and we'll work with you at that point. Any questions, sir?
No, that's fine. So when I pay it, do I have to come back into court or no? I mean,
No,
just to be clear.
As long as you
done.
pay it before the 20th, you do not need to come back to court.
Okay. And I'll get a receipt from the clerk's office.
The payment, I don't know how that works, but when you make the payment online, you'll be emailed or whatever a receipt showing that you paid it. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Jackson, do you need anything from Mr. Slater?
Yes, I would need to meet with him briefly in a breakout session.
All right, Mr. Slater, once after Mr. Jackson talks to you, you'll be free to leave. Okay, sir?
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You have a good evening.
You too.
Waiting for Miss Solomon, Judge. As soon as she gets back in, we've got an announcement in her case.
Okay.
Okay. Miss Solomon,
There she
if you
is.
will unmute yourself again, please, and raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
State your name, please.
Natasha Solomon.
Thank you. You can take your hand down, Ms. Solomon. Now, Ms. Solomon is originally charged with fatal bay traffic control device. A COVID letter was sent to her in August of 2020. She desires to avail herself of the offer that was made at that time. Consequently, the defendant is entering a plea of guilty to an amended accusation charging her with violation of uniform rules of the road or local ordinance. Recommendation is that the court impose a fine amount of $145 plus the $3.50 surcharge. Judge, it is my understanding that Ms. Solomon is going to ask the court for a 30-day reset to pay on this. And Judge, may I speak with Mr. Kumar while you're taking that?
Yes, sir. That would be great. Thank you. All right, Ms. Solomon, I understand you're entering a plea to this amended accusation, uniform rules of the road. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. You understand by entering your plea, even though it's an amended accusation, but you're still entering a plea and waiving your right to a trial on the original charge. Do you understand that?
Correct.
And do you understand you're also giving up or waiving your right to remain silent?
Yes.
And do you understand that by proceeding this evening without counsel, you're waiving or giving up your right to an attorney on this matter?
Yes.
Are you under the influence of any drugs or alcohol this evening, ma'am?
Nope, just life.
Very good. Well, I find you are entering your plea freely and voluntarily, so I'm going to accept that plea of guilty to this amended accusation, uniform rules of the road. The fine amount, as Mr. Steele indicated, and this is consistent on all these reductions that are pursuant to the pandemic. The court's imposing a fine of $145, which with the surcharge comes out to $148.50. I understand you need some time to pay that.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm still looking for work.
Okay. I was going to ask, so is 30 days going to be enough time, or what kind of work do you do, ma'am?
I do logistics, transportation.
Okay.
I'm looking for management positions in transportation. Actually, I'm looking for anything in transportation now
I
because
understand.
I can't be begging.
Are you currently working, ma'am?
No,
How long has it been since you were last employed?
7 months now.
Do you have, hold on just a second. I just realized I have my state court background on there. This isn't state court. This is municipal court. Pay no attention to that. Sorry. Do you have any dependents living with you, Ms. Solomon?
Yes, I actually have my 3 kids, but my daughter's moving out soon, so she'll be fine. She's 20.
Okay. And your other children are how old?
I have a 17-year-old that goes to college, and then I have a 12-year-old that's still in middle school.
Awesome. Very good. All right. I tell you what, Mr. Jackson, can we do a 60-day reset?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Solomon, that'll give you some more time. And as you've heard me explain, if you can pay it by this reset date, you won't need to come back to court or anything. Okay.
Okay.
If something comes up and you can't pay it, just make sure you come back to court, and I'll hear from you at that time, and we'll work something out if we need to.
Thank you.
Okay. What's that date going to be, Mr. Jackson?
Okay, I am unmuted. That is going to be October the 11th.
Okay.
Okay. I should have a job by then.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah. I feel good about it.
I
Thank
feel
you,
good
guys.
about it too. If I knew any jobs, I'd tell you about it. All right.
Got a good resume.
There you go. It's tough right now, I know, but
Yeah.
all right. So Mr. Jackson's going to get with you, make sure he's got the correct contact information, because there's going to be some online forms you'll need, or electronic forms that you'll need to sign. But I wish you the
Okay.
very best, ma'am.
Thank
And then
you.
once he's done, you're excused. Okay. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
You take care. All right, Mr. Steele, what have we got on Mr. Kumar?
Okay, Judge, Mr. Kumar, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, sir.
Judge, I don't know how far y'all got with Mr. Kumar. I don't know if he entered a plea or not.
He did not.
Okay, then let's just start anew. Mr. Kumar, if you raise your right hand, please, you do swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
It's truth. Yes.
State your name, please.
Sanjay Kumar.
Thank you. You can take your hand down. Your Honor, Mr. Kumar is charged with failure to maintain lane. He desires to enter a plea of nolo contendere to that charge. The city does not oppose the court accepting that plea. Recommendation is that the court impose a fine amount of $150 plus the applicable state surcharge, bringing the total to $208.25. It is my understanding that Mr. Kumar is prepared to pay that fine tonight and to close this case out.
Mr. Kumar, you understand, is that your understanding of the agreement you reached with Mr. Steele?
Yes.
All right. And do you understand that by entering a plea of nolo, you're still giving up your right to a trial on this charge?
Yes.
And do you understand that you're also waiving your right to remain silent and your right to the presumption of innocence and some of the other rights that I reviewed earlier this evening?
Yes.
And by proceeding without an attorney, are you waiving or giving up your right to an attorney?
Yes.
All right. Are you under the influence of any drugs or alcohol this evening, sir?
No.
All right. I find you're entering this plea freely and voluntarily, so I'm going to accept the plea of nolo contendere to this charge of failure to maintain lane. The fine amount of $150, when you add those surcharges that we talked about earlier, comes to a total of $208.25. Are you in a position to pay that this evening?
Yes.
All right, so the clerk is going to make sure that we have your correct contact information, email address. You're going to get some forms that you're going to have to sign electronically to get back to us, and then you'll have instructions for how to make that payment. Once you've got those forms back to us and the payment is made, your case will be closed out. Okay, sir?
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right. Do you have any questions?
No, sir.
All right. Make sure that the clerk has the information he needs, and once he tells you you're free to leave, then you can sign off. Okay, but don't sign off until he does that.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Steele, is there anything else?
Judge, there is nothing further from the city's standpoint. I believe that completes our calendar.
I believe it does as well. So we will be adjourned. It's good to see you, sir. I guess am I going to see you in person on Monday? Is that?
With bells on, Judge, in person.
There we go.
How about that?
We'll see how long that lasts. So.
I'll have to start shaving again,